Hello, everybody. I'm Colin Breckles with Castlebrack. Heiko?
And Heike Vogt with Harbor Light in Halifax. Graham, over to you.
And Graham Akers from Brightech Systems in Vancouver, coming to you from IBM Think in San Francisco.
So today we're talking about Think Day 4 recap. Our kind friend Graham, the Vancouverite, was dismayed to find wet, inhospitable weather in San Fran of all places. Our friend's probably well used to it, but nonetheless. So Graham, Day 4.
I'm very much a fish, but this has been probably too much to handle. And it's snowing like mad in Vancouver right now, so I just brought the rain with me. So yeah, Day 4, we started with an open theater session with Andrew Manby and Richard Jeffs talking about Domino 11, which was an absolutely fantastic, energizing session. And it actually started, as people were coming in, there's just music playing, and it was on the showcase floor, so it was kind of mass pandemonium. But We Will Rock You, Queen, was playing in the background. And so Andrew Manby standing up on stage, and he's just kind of milling about. We're waiting for people to come in. And then he just starts going stomp, stomp, clap, stomp, stomp, clap, and had the whole group of us doing the stomp, stomp, clap to We Will Rock You. It was really a lot of fun. So then we sit down, and there's like a postcard with a little ad, and it had a Valentine's saying on it that had to do with V11. And a little chocolate, because it was Valentine's Day. We got a little Valentine treat to start things off. Anyway, the session was fantastic. I recorded it. We're going to try and get it uploaded as quick as we can. Lots of great announcements. There was a bit of a recap on V10, then went into talking about V11. They certainly talked about some things that haven't gone well in the V10 launch, like the language pack. So they were only able to their intention was they were going to push out English right away and follow it with the rest of the language packs. And I don't know if most people know the story, but they had to transition the language support effort from IBM to HCL. And IBM has a well-oiled machine with respect to the language packs that they use for all of their software. And HCL didn't have that. So they've struggled for the past months to try and spin that up. So they basically came out and said, okay, we learned our lesson on that one. When V11 ships, it's going to support all of the Group 1 languages, and they intend to support the Group 2 languages right after that. So there were lots of people from China and Japan who were eagerly waiting that news. So that was a very positive step. Lots of other really good things, but kind of the key highlight was, there were two things. They had a customer, Fabrice Langlois, he's from a company in Boston, got up and just talked about sort of the experience of being close to HCL and able to say, hey, I found this with, whatever experience they had in V10, including during the beta period, and was close enough that he could actually drive over to HCL and go, I need to talk to somebody. This is driving me crazy. And he actually said, he was kind of coming in with an angry voice and then going up with a happy voice because he was able to get in there and get something dealt with and come out again. So that was pretty cool. He got up there and just talked about his experience, in beta and in production. And then we got to see a demo of Domino mobile apps on an Android device. So last year we were all excited about Domino mobile apps on an iPad. This year they actually showed off on an Android tablet, and literally did a live demo that we could watch, where you could see his finger reaching in and tapping on the screen, and also showed Chrome OS support. So not only Android, which of course it's natural to think, right, that if you're going to use an Android tablet, that it's got to support Chrome. So that was pretty awesome to see. And I'm trying to remember, there was something else. I think it was the Chrome OS announcement. I was sitting next to Matt Newman, and he was whooping and hollering over that one. So that was just this, like, the fireworks went off first thing in the morning. And then we got up and literally ran to a lab session that Luis Guiriguet and Stefano Bogliani did, where they showed off the demos that they actually did in the ICS launch day on day 2, excuse me, where they were able to, from a Domino application, do integration into Slack, Teams. There's a tool, I think it's called Look, which is the biggest chat tool in China. And Luis told the story where he had gone over to China and he had all of his demos ready for being able to show integration into Slack. And so he's talking to some people about it, I think in the IBM office there. And they're like, what's Slack? And he gets this look on his face and he goes, okay, don't worry about it. We've got integration into Microsoft Teams. And they go, what's Microsoft Teams? And he's like, oh my God, I'm going to die in this demo, right? Nobody's going to know what I'm talking about. So he goes, okay, what tool do you guys use? And so they told him what the tool was. And in an hour and a half, he had adopted his demo to be able to do integration with this tool. And if you think about it, you're going to integrate with Teams or Slack or some foreign package outside of Domino. There's things like, you know, the secret key and, you know, the various odd bits and pieces that you need to construct to be able to do conversation with an external app. And he said all of the instructions were in Chinese. So he's using Google Translate to try and understand what this tool was so that he could actually build the integration. And he still pulled it off in an hour and a half. And he wowed. He said, I think he said on that day, he had a lineup of 25 people who were like, I need this right now. So that code is going to be open source through OpenNTF probably within the next, I forget how long he said, but I've already applied to get a copy of the code. So once we're allowed to share it, we're going to post it up and make sure that people can get it. And it's simple. It's so simple. It's Lotus script and it's like a few lines of code. It was awesome. So we did that. And then Stefano got up and he did a whole session on Node-RED because two of the demo basically was a, I forget what it was. It was like a Domino Toys was the name of the fake company. And it was like, I got to create an order and then I need to have that order approved. So the logic was that you create a document in Notes and you save it for approval and the code automatically runs and shotguns out this notification to whatever you choose. And in his demo, he chose like 8 different things, including a phone call. And he actually had, he held his phone up and the phone rings and he answers the phone. And it's this automated voice that says, you've received an order for approval from Domino Applications, put in your PIN code, and then approve the order. And he could do it through voice command over his phone. But it also, for example, would push it into Slack. And so there would be literally a button in Slack that you could click, which would then make a call back to the database and run the Domino processing to actually approve the order. And that processing was all managed through Node-RED. So Stefano went through and explained and showed an example of all that. And I was massively catching screen captures while he was doing that. So we'll try and grab that code to be able to put together some demo videos and actually show it. So I had like these 2 awesome sessions to start the day. And then there was another one that I wanted to go to. I was over at the main conference center, and a lot of the Domino sessions have been at a different hotel. It's about a 15-minute walk between them, which has been quite frustrating because you can't, you know, just go to one session and then walk across the hall to go to another one. So there was one on Node-RED that Scott Good did that I didn't actually get to, but I want to grab the slides for. That was followed by an IBM Champions roundtable that I volunteered to do where we were talking about user groups. And so there was a kind of a neat back and forth conversation. They actually had 2 tables going and both of us afterwards said that it was a fantastic experience. So anyway, learned some stuff from other people that were doing user groups and shared some of our experiences. I actually had one guy at the very end, he says, so we were talking about our YouTube experience and how we're doing. And he said, that's something that you should really share. You should do a YouTube video about doing YouTube videos for your user group. At that point,
Could do.
yeah, well, why not, right? In fact, I did a very brief on day 1, a very brief lightning talk about our experience doing YouTube videos as C3UG, and I actually recorded it. So I've watched the video. I don't know if it was kind of crappy, but whatever. So we might share that too. Which, by the way, I just thought of this. I was talking to our good friend Tony Olivier, and we were talking about, you know, the fact that I was going to be at the conference and you guys weren't able to be at the conference. And he said, "Oh, so it's not C3UG, it's C1UG." Anyway, so then the afternoon was really good technical content. I did a Domino session. Let me just look again and remember what it was. Darren Casey. Oh, it was on DQL. It was excellent. And in fact, there were HCL guys in the room, including Andrew Davis, who at one point, Darren was doing his thing and he did a really good job. But Darren was talking about the fact that you need to install Proton in order to be able to use DQL. And of course, that's for using the Node.js integration. And Andrew just put his hand up and he said, I want to clarify, you don't need to install Proton in order to do DQL. You can do DQL using LotusScript, using Java, straight out of Domino Core without having to have the Proton task installed. So that was a really good little tidbit that came out of it. But Darren's slides actually talked about some things that didn't work as well as he expected in the DQL experience. For example, there's I won't say strict, but there's a set of guidelines that you want to follow for building a view that you're going to take advantage of using in DQL. And he said there are some specific rules around things that you do in a view to make it more efficient from a DQL perspective. Documentation is all very clear. I haven't had a chance to drink it in yet, but anyway, that was a fantastic session. That was followed up by a connection session. Adam Gartenberg and Scott Good were talking about customizing the UI, so ICEC, and the things that you can do in connections. And Scott is a long-time Lotus guy who really, really pays attention to UI. So he showed some really simple, neat tricks that you can do in terms of just making community homepages really, appealing. And that was followed up by 2 sessions from ISW. Adam Brown and Maria Norden were talking about kudos boards and just integration with Verse. So how you could, from Verse, be able to take an email and add it directly into a board in Connections or an activity. That was a really good session. And that was followed up from 5:30 until 6:10. Jared Roberts from ISW was talking about modernizing Domino applications. And it was more, he said that ISW was hearing from a lot of people about how do they modernize their Domino apps and Notes apps. And so it was more taking through sort of the consulting approach of sitting down and doing some analysis and talking about what are your most used apps and how, what are the options for either sunset an app that's not used, or put it into a read-only mode versus migrating it to a different platform versus keeping it on Notes and doing some prettying up versus going into the whole Node world. And the really neat tidbit that he threw out there was that he had a customer that engaged them, and they talked about, I think they said something like, we've got 25 really highly used applications, and we want to talk about modernizing these apps. And so Jared talked about using the Panagenda Marvel client, which I'll come back to in a second, to do, or not Marvel client, but their, what's their other tool that does analytics on the entire Domino infrastructure. Anyway, used that tool and came back and said, actually, you don't have 25 apps that are heavily used. You have 1,000 apps that are heavily used. And the people that he was talking to didn't even know that they had all of these other applications on their Domino servers that the rest of their organization was using. And so it changed the conversation, right? So it was one of those, look, let's do a proper process of taking a look at your Domino environment and infrastructure and getting a really good idea. And that tool is free from Panagenda.
Yeah, this is Application Insights, right?
Application
That's
Insights.
what it is. Yes, thank you, Michael. So what did I say I was going to come back to? Oh, the Application Insights and the Marvel client were announced. I think Application Insights was announced last year. Marvel client was announced just the other day that it's going to be available, I think, from March 14th for free for doing analysis and being able to manage and upgrade to Domino 10 and 11. So there you go. That was my day before we stepped out into the rainy
Graham, did they say anything about, like in the Domino part, anything about an app store that they're currently working?
Yes. Yeah, the app store, they kind of, all they really did was they acknowledged that in the V11 jams, that was a really strong theme that people are saying they want to have an app store. So they didn't say, this is what we're going to do to build an app store, or here's how you're going to use it or whatever. But they did say that's very high on their list of things that they're planning for V11.
What we also talked about on the a lot in the V11 jams was a revival of the Nifty 50.
Yeah.
Was that a theme as well?
That was announced as well, that they're planning not necessarily to do 50. Richard Jeff said actually more than 50, but that they are working on sample applications that are going to have code that we can, just like when we did use the Nifty 50, that we can download, pull apart, and learn from. So yeah, they're all on board for that too.
Cool. Wow. Good stuff.
Yeah. That's all I got for you guys. Today is just a half a day, so then we're heading home tonight. But our good friend Tony Olivier is doing a session later on this morning that I plan on being in before I head to the airport and hopefully head home.
Yeah, hopefully you won't get drenched with snow when you're coming back home, eh?
My wife's been keeping me updated. Apparently it snowed yesterday, but hopefully they're going to let planes land tonight. Excellent.
Cool. So, any famous last word from San Fran before we close up for today?
You know what? I think the one thing that I'll say is that I'm really happy I came. I was really wondering if, with the announcement of the transition from IBM to HCL for Domino Connections and the whole portfolio, I was really wondering if there was going to be worthwhile content. And I'm very happy to say that it has been worthwhile. The one thing that has happened is kind of typical of all conferences like this, where you have to decide what you're actually going to go and see. So the frustration between being at the main conference center or having to come over here for the Domino specific sessions kind of rained on my idea of being able to spread my wings a little bit. So I really had to decide if I was going to do non-Domino sessions or come and do Domino and Connection sessions. And I've managed to find a decent balance, but certainly my step count is a lot higher, which is normal for this kind of a conference. But interestingly enough, there were only kind of like 2 different sessions in the Notes and Domino and Connections set of sessions that were available. So it wasn't like we were choosing from 6 and having to be really disappointed that we couldn't see 3 sessions that were running at the same time. It really, they managed to strike a nice balance, which is kind of it was crummy when I was looking at my schedule, because I'm like, really, there are not that many sessions. But ultimately, I was able to see really pretty much everything that I wanted to see. So I'm really happy I came. I've seen excellent content, and I'm just like all times you go to a conference, I just come with all kinds of energy to go and play with lots of new stuff that I've seen here. So I've been very happy.
Perfect.
Very nice. Well, Graham, in your absence, I don't know if you caught it on the news, but did you see the gentleman in Vancouver who built an igloo for his girlfriend? Did you see that story?
I did not see that. No.
So I'll keep it brief. You don't get a lot of snow, and when you do, it doesn't stay for long, right? You got a lot of snow in Vancouver recently, and it stayed cold enough that it stuck around for a while. So a guy decided to embrace it, and he legit built a smallish igloo for him and his girlfriend. And she was so impressed that they decided to hang out in it, built a fire in front of it, iced it up, put their bed in it, slept in it for 5 nights in a row.
Oh my gosh!
Yep, it made mainstream media. It was a pretty interesting story. So check that out. That's what you're going home to, my friend.
Cool. That's awesome.
Okay, so enjoy the rest of the conference, Graham, and safe travels. And
travel safe.
We'll talk to you soon.
We'll talk to you when we get back.
Click the notification bell, like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for all the love.
Cheers, everybody.
Okay, bye now.